Good evening. Namaste.
Namaste.
Welcome to the 11th episode of AYUR Talks. We have today with us Padma Bhushan Dr. MS Valiathan, who is a National Research Professor of the Government of India. AYUR Talks is being organized by the World Ayurveda Foundation. For those who are unaware of it, the World Ayurveda Foundation is working in the area of Ayurveda Renaissance. World Ayurveda Foundation is better known for the biennial World Ayurveda Congresses it conducts. World Ayurveda Congress is the largest global platform of Ayurveda clinicians, academics, researchers, industry, and other stakeholders. They extend their ideas and create new dimensions of growth in the sector. World Ayurveda Foundation, we started in 2000. World Ayurveda Congress started in the year 2002 and had until now 8 editions of it conducted across the country. The 9th one, posted for 2020, has been postponed to 2021 owing to the corona pandemic. In the run up to the 9th WAC, World Ayurveda Foundation has organized this interview series, the AYUR Talks. World Ayurveda Foundation is primarily supported since its inception by Vijnana Bharati. Vijnana Bharati is one of the largest science movements in the world, if not in the country, if not in the world. Vibha is a vibrant movement for the development of Swadeshi sciences, interlinking traditional and modern sciences adapted to national needs. Vijnana Bharati has units in 22 states across the country. It works in 11 different areas to autonomous institutions, independent organizations, and also as project initiatives. In organizing AYUR Talks, World Ayurveda Foundation is supported by Journal of Ayurveda Integrative Medicine, the most prominent medical journal in the integrative medicine area related to Ayurveda. We are also supported by NASYA, National Ayurveda Students and Youth Association, which is a national organization of Ayurvedic students and youth with branches and subunits in all states of India. In organizing this series of AYUR Talks, we have been supported financially by Ayurveda Shala Kottakkal, one of the oldest and most respected industrial houses of Ayurveda. We wholeheartedly thank the management of Ayurveda Shala Kottakkal for their support for this program. A few words on AYUR Talks. AYUR Talks is a pursuit in wisdom. In AYUR Talks, we ask the question why to some of the most influential persons of Ayurveda and health sector on their choices and decisions. We ask them why they did what they did. We invite you to a journey that shall provide you invaluable insights to the why of things that influence our life and profession, to the why of the decisions taken, to the factors that influence the influences. Welcome to AYUR Talks. Now, may I invite Dr. Pawan Kumar Godatwar to introduce Dr. Valiathan.
Thank you, Geeta ji. It is indeed an honor to welcome such a legendary personality to this forum. Martanda Varma Shankaran Valiathan, MS Valiathan. Who in Ayurveda doesn't know this name? Basically, he is a cardiac surgeon. He was an erstwhile president of the Indian National Science Academy. He was awarded the Padma Vibhushan in 2005 for his contributions to health technology. Interesting field. He was made Chevalier in the Order of Palms Academics, an honor bestowed by the French government in 1999. He received Dr. Samuel P. Esper International Award from the Johns Hopkins University Medical School in 2009 for his contributions to international medical education. So health technology and medical education. He is straddling both worlds together. He has got a hugely successful academic career. He served on the faculty of Georgetown University Hospital, Postgraduate Institute of Medical Education and Research, Indian Institute of Technology, Chennai, Madras, and was director of Sri Chitra Thirunal Institute of Medical Sciences and Technology. Subsequently, Valiathanji became the first Vice Chancellor of Manipal University in 1994. And since then, he decided to settle there itself in Manipal. He has a very eventful career in Sri Chitra Thirunal Institute. We'll be going into greater details in the talk itself. Very interestingly, he has got lots and lots of honors The person who has got a Padma Vibhushan need not be told anything more about the awards. Padma Vibhushan in 2005, Padma Bhushan in 1990. And very interestingly, Jawaharlal Nehru Tropical Botanical Garden and Research Institute, Trivandrum, named a new hybrid in their orchid breeding program. It's called Paphidophillium MS Valiathan in his honor. It's registered in International Register of Orchid Hybrids, and a new R&D facility named MS Valiathan Medical Devices Engineering Block was opened by Union Minister Dr. Harshvardhan at the Sri Chitra Institute, Trivandrum on May 16, 2015. I can go on and on about it. Most importantly, from Ayurvedic point of view, he had written from 2003, he has been writing the legacy of Charak, legacy of Sushrut in 2007, legacy of Vagbhat in 2010, introduction to Ayurveda in 2012, Ayurvedic inheritance, a reader's companion in 2017. So I welcome everybody to this wonderful session. I thank already Dr. MS Valiathan, the legend, to this forum. He consented to give us his very valuable time. Sir, uh, I will let Geeta ji ask you the first question.
Thank you, Pavanji. Sir, as Dr. Pavan was saying, your career in the modern medical field is like is towering to even the most towering of modern medical practitioners across the globe. So, I would like to know from that towering position, what did you see in Ayurveda that is behind your love for Ayurveda? What brought you into Ayurveda? You can give us some kind of an idea about that.
That's an interesting question. As you heard, I spent 20 years as a cardiac surgeon in the Sri Chitra Institute. So in the early 90s, I had already been doing cardiac surgery for 25 years. But it occurred to me that in the operating room where we do open heart surgery, there will be at least 12 people there. The patient, the surgeon, the assistant, the nurse, anesthetist, technologist, perfusionist, all sorts of people. And we use a great deal of technology, heart-lung machine, electronic machines, life-saving equipment, etc. But it occurred to me that every day spending hours standing there doing my work, everything in that room, operating room, except the human beings, they are all foreign in origin. The ideas, for example, you can stop the heart and lungs and do an operation on somebody's heart. That very idea, that is foreign. The technologies we use, the large number of instruments, the devices, everything is imported. This used to disturb me. And in the succeeding years, this became an obsession with me. Why is it like this? We have so many eminent surgeons here. Indians are known for their expertise in medicine, medical practice. But why is it we are not originating anything here? Then gradually it dawned on me, it is not only in cardiac surgery. You take any field, nephrology, neurology, neurosurgery. You take any field in medicine, modern medicine. You find the same situation. All the technologies, all the tools we use, all the ideas we use, these are all coming from abroad. This was a very disturbing thought. And I was reminded of the scientist Shockley. There was a famous physicist called Shockley. In the 1960s, he was the man who got Nobel Prize for transistors, for inventing that. And Shockley made a statement. He shocked everybody with that statement. He said, any groundbreaking discoveries in science, only the white people are capable of doing this. Other people may make some modification, they may tinker with it, but great discoveries, they only come from white people. He was severely, I was in the United States at that time, 1960 or 61. He was severely criticized and so on, but he stood his ground. I started thinking maybe he's right. But that was a very damaging confession. But then it dawned on me, after all, modern medicine, the British introduced in India. That was about 1830 at that time. But India has a very, very longer history in medicine. That is Ayurveda. Was there any time in our history, forget these 250 years, was there any time in our past where we were original, capable of original thinking, something creative? That is how I started going to the past. And there I discovered first Susruta Samhita, because as you know, he was a surgeon. And there I discovered he had a large number of operations he had described. He was not borrowing it from anybody, like plastic repair of the nose, removing the bladder stone and perineal systole. He thought of a very, very complicated, difficult operation. Large number of operations, 120 instruments, sharp and blunt instruments, very well designed. So if all these, similarly Charaka, the concepts in Charaka, when you do Panchakarma, for example, there is a whole hypothesis behind it, how you are removing certain things from the body, not everything. Now there is a hypothesis, and hypothesis-driven science is high science. Simply describing is also science, but that is not high science. So Charaka has a number of them. The way rasayanas work, how do they work? There is a hypothesis behind it. The very name Rasayana comes from that. So then I was reassured. There was a time in India when we did think originally. We came up with original concepts, original technologies. That is how I got involved with Ayurveda when I was in Trivandrum. But at that time, I got an invitation from Kottakkal to give a Foundation Day lecture, PS Warriors. So there I went, I chose the Sushruta as my subject, a surgical colossus. That lecture which I gave had an unusually warm reception. It was published in our Indian Journal of Surgery. So I realized that there is some interest in this subject. So when I came to Manipal, very soon after that, I was invited by the Raman Institute, Bangalore. They have a prestigious lecture called Gandhi Lecture. There I chose Charaka as my subject. That gave an opportunity for me to read a smaller book on Charaka. And that lecture, when it finished, I came down the stage and Professor Satish Dhawan was in the front row. So he came to me and he said, I had heard about this name Charaka, but I had no idea that such things had been conceptualized in India. You should write about this seriously. This is what he told me. That and Satish Dhawan was a man of few words, and whatever he said, you had to take it seriously. Then I decided I'll take this as soon as I retired here. My term was over. New century was beginning. So I changed my field of interest. Whatever I had been doing earlier, I stopped doing. And it's not enough that you read books, and I know some Sanskrit, but I'm not a scholar. But you have to study Ayurveda under a teacher. You cannot just read from books and learn. And that's how I went to Raghavan Tiruvallur. That was a great learning education for me, a different way of thinking. Some of the things I learned, I had to unlearn to understand Ayurveda. So from then I have been with this now, from 2020 years now. That is how my long friendship or love affair with Ayurveda.
Wonderful, sir. Very, very, very happy to hear that. Pavanji, you can ask for the next question, please.
Take you back to your previous life, past life. Make in India has come in vogue now. However, in 1975, the demand for prosthetic heart valves was high, which could not be met by imported valves. As you said, that what you were doing in the operation theater was everything foreign made. You and your team opted to develop a mechanical valve. Currently marketed Chitra TTK valve is the fourth model. In fact, you got the Padma Vibhushan for health technology. So that is also very dear to you. Please tell us the story behind the Make in India or Made in India Chitra TTK valve.
That also is connected with my life in Sri Chitra Institute. Because when I joined there, was an empty building. We had no staff, equipment or anything there. So within 2 years, we started doing cardiac surgery. But then I found it was a hospital of the Kerala government at that time. And poor patients who were treating free. That was one of the conditions of the government. And almost 80% of our patients were poor patients. They were entitled to get free treatment. So we had a great influx of young patients with rheumatic heart disease. In many advanced countries, this has been eliminated, but we still have, especially women. Rheumatic heart disease is more common in women. So we had these young women coming with valvular heart disease in advanced stages because they couldn't get any treatment earlier. And they needed valve replacement. Now, technically, we were capable of doing that. But our problem was, the imported valve at that time was 8,000 rupees. It's a Swedish valve, made in the United States, but Swedish design, called Bjork-Shiley valve. Now, 8,000 rupees with the money that I was getting from the Kerala government, a fixed amount, I could hardly do 40 patients a year. And we had hundreds of patients. So very quickly, in a matter of 2 years, we had a waiting list of patients. So how do you tell a patient coming short of breath, got pitting edema in the legs, how do you tell that patient your turn will come in 2 years, you come back? It's ridiculous. And there was no way I could solve this problem. They couldn't go to a private hospital and get it done because they didn't have any money. So that is where myself and an engineering colleague of mine, who was my student in the Madras IIT, I had brought him to Trivandrum, and a veterinary surgeon who was there. We were the three people. We decided that we will make it here. I could not have made that decision because I was fortunate in my training days in the United States. I worked in Johns Hopkins and Georgetown hospitals, very famous hospitals. And my chief there, the cardiac surgeons, they were not only did cardiac surgery, but they were also people designing medical devices. So I had the great good fortune to learn this from them, inspiration from them. So I felt we could do this here. But that was easily said. But in Trivandrum, as you know, there is no great engineering industry there. We had no great institutes there. In the 1970s, we had hardly anything. So not like, say, a city like Bangalore or Mumbai. But we decided anyway. And it was a long story. We had to comply with the international requirements because it is for human application. And these standards are very high. For example, not only the materials that you are using should be compatible with the body. There are a number of tests for that. Then once you make a prototype, you are going to test it, the engineering tests to start with. That the heart valve opens and closes 100,000 times a day. So this is the international standards insist that the valve should function without mechanical failure for 10 years. That is 365 billion times it should open and close without failure. So this kind of testing, it is very, very difficult to do. And then you have to test it in the animals and show that it works very well. So in doing this, we had 3 setbacks, 3 models failed. But the 4th one became very successful. That's what is being marketed now. And this now, we did the first heart valve in a patient, this 4th model. That was in 1990, December. So that patient is still alive. December 6th, the day of his operation, he calls me every year. He was a teacher at that time. Now he is retired. He started some business after his retirement. He's still very active. So that 1.5 lakh valves have been implanted. Now they are exporting. So it's a great success story. I think the success really, one is you require tenacity. So something like what Bhagirath, our forefathers, did that. You don't get dissuaded by a failure. That is only a stepping stone to success. That's the way to look at it, no matter how much you are criticized. The second is you have to have partnerships. If you try to do all this on your own, for example, in a place like Trivandrum, if a metal frame of a valve has broken, now that breakage analysis, that requires very high level of materials testing. We cannot have it in Trivandrum. If I wanted that in my lab, I'll never get it. So I go to Bangalore National Aeronautical Lab, there are people who will do it for you. This is another thing. In India, we have the capacity in India, but not in one place. If you want to test polymers, plastics, you can go to NCL Pune. So everything is available here. For the valve, for stitching the valve in place, you need a plastic cloth. Now that technology, textile technology, it is available in Coimbatore, Citra. So you should be ready to go talk to them. And I did not pay any of these people. They knew it was work for the public. It was being done. There was nothing personal in it. And it is a very great benefit to thousands of cardiac patients. So they all willingly cooperate. So if you have partnerships with wherever partnership is required, help is required, that is available. So these are the two things for the success. One is the tenacity, 3 failures, and each failure means 1.5 years you take to find the next one. So it took 7 or 7.5 years because of this. So that tenacity you should have. And secondly, you should be willing to form partnerships. Then success is guaranteed.
Great story, sir. It is as good as the Mission Mangal story. I hope somebody will make a full-length feature film out of it. Dr. C.K. Katiyar has asked a corollary question to this, sir. Application on technology to Ayurveda diagnostics. But we will get back to this question again, sir, a little later in the talk. Let Geeta ji ask you the next pertinent question.
Yeah.
Geeta ji.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Sir, like this is again related to what you said earlier regarding your talk at IISc in Bangalore. It was titled Ayurveda Biology, and then it is famed. We have heard that the Prime Minister himself wanted you to be the national professor, and you directly reported to him, and then. Ayurveda was one of the major things that you took up, and the title of the entire program which you took up in Ayurveda was Ayurveda Biology. Can you tell us a little bit about Ayurveda Biology? What you think, and what can happen if or how Ayurveda can progress through science, and vice versa? And also, the research programs you have been leading in Ayurveda Biology, and the major outcomes and its implications to health, if not now, in future.
Ayurveda, I mentioned already, the modern science came in contact with Ayurveda with Garcia de Ota, the Portuguese physician. And most of his work was about medicinal plants, including Ravolfia, for example, which is not mentioned in our ancient texts. But Garcia mentions it because it was being used by the physicians in Goa in the 16th century. So he started this interest in medicinal plants, which was picked up by Indians also very quickly. And then the 17th century, it was Van Reed, the Dutch governor of Goa, who became interested. Actually, he was not a physician. He was a naval person. But when he he didn't think much about he was a very great warrior. So he became the military governor of Goa. And there he didn't think much about the Keralites, their food. He thought it was very poor quality for the food that we were eating. But he was surprised. In spite of that, they were capable of very hard work. Climbing coconut trees, working in the field. The productivity was very high. And this he kept wondering, where do they get the stamina, the kind of food that they're eating? So he started wondering, in their food there was always spices, like our coriander, turmeric, and so many. No food is complete without turmeric, without these spices. So he had an idea that maybe these spices are what give them this energy. So he wanted to make a study of spices. And being the governor, he had no problem getting plant scientists and some 100 people he assembled in a matter of a couple of years. And the Kochi Maharaja supported. Zamudrin gave support financially. And major support came from the Dutch East India Company. And this survey of the plants from Kanyakumari to Goa, it's not just Kerala alone, this took 30 years. And he had 2 or 3 army people who could draw excellent drawings of plants. very skilled people. So the plants were identified, and the names in Latin, in English, in Sanskrit, and Arabic, they were written, the names. And the Itti Achyutan, a physician, was also attached to this. Kochi Maharaja recommended, so he joined. So the medical applications were also given. So 740 plants were identified, exquisite drawings. Even today, Hortus Malabaricus, the Garden of Malabar, that great book, 12 volumes, published from Amsterdam. Now that was a pace setter. Even the founder of modern botany, Linnaeus, he himself says, I wish I had this book when I was writing. That classic was published. So that was again medicinal plants. So taxonomy became the king, really. Everybody was into taxonomy. So following this, a number of others, Roxburgh, Ainsley, large number of people. Roxburgh was in Calcutta, and he was admired by J.C. Bose as a very great scientist. So like that, taxonomy was all medicinal plants. That was continued almost up to 20th century. And 20th century, there was a change. Pharmacology came on the scene. For the first time, Sir Ramnath Chopra was in Calcutta School of Tropical Medicine. He started using, he's the father of Indian pharmacology. He was using pharmacology approach to study Ayurveda. That is where the isolation of compounds from medicinal plants, purification, that brought a new type of contact, new science in relation to Ayurveda. That was followed by natural products chemistry, a natural outcome. And India became more or less a leader of natural products chemistry. Great people like Ashima Chatterjee in Calcutta, Govindachari working on neem in Chennai. So we had in India large number of publications. Even today they are being used as a database on medicinal plants. But all this is the first half of the 20th century. We had institutes dealing with taxonomy. The institute in Goa, in Jammu, for example, only dealing with this. NBRI in Lucknow. But what is happening in biology in the 20th century, by the middle, was the double helix. Molecular biology came, the basis of life itself. That completely, radically changed not only biology, but the whole science, the practice of science. So whenever there is a new science with taxonomy, then it is pharmacology, then it is natural products chemistry. So here is a new aspect of biology now, new branch, molecular biology. So it was natural that molecular biology will view Ayurveda through its own window. And this, when we found this, and there are a number of areas in Ayurveda where this can be used. Because, for example, take dosha prakriti in Ayurveda, vata, pitta, kapha. This was used for 2000, even Charaka's time it was there, perhaps even earlier. So there the diagnosis is made based on physical, mental and behavioral traits, which are all described in the Samhitas. But there is no biological confirmation for this. These are our observation. We had no other way at that time. But once molecular biology came, after mid-20th century, we could actually look at the genetic structure of that person, genotype. We could look at gene expression. We could look at gene mutations. All these things, we had the power to do it. So why not use that and study this? Is there a biological basis for it? Or we say that resistance to disease is increased by giving rasayanas. But can we prove it? Today we can. We have immunologic tests which can be done. Earlier on, it could not be done. So there is a new series of sciences today in biology which gives us this power. That is Ayurvedic biology. So I gave a lecture some years ago in Benares, Indian Academy of Sciences annual meeting, where I mentioned this. This is a new branch which is emerging, and it should be called Ayurvedic biology. So Professor T.V. Ramakrishnan, very eminent physicist, he was the president of the academy. So he came to me after the meeting. He said, can you write on this? The Indian Academy would like to publish this. So I wrote a document which was published by the Indian Academy of Sciences called Towards Ayurvedic Biology. So essentially, it is a modern branch of biological sciences, but The clues always come from Ayurveda, whether it is doing panchakarma, what happens to the immune system, and rasayana, when we say, for example, DNA chain breaks are reduced by giving rasayana, how does it happen? Now, all these, the roots, the clues come from Ayurveda, but the techniques used are all modern. That is a new branch. That is how the Ayurvedic biology was set up as initially the principal scientific advisor to the government of India, Dr. Chidambaram. He was the only one who supported this, I must say that. Even though everybody pays lip service to this. I knew ICMR, go to CSR, all these people will pay lip service. Science applied to Ayurveda, that's what we should do. But in terms of actually supporting, nobody would support. That was my experience. It was only Chidambaram, a neutron physicist, who said, we will support. So that's how it started, because in my document I had written even the projects which should be done, including, say, microstructure of bhasmas, things like that. So we took those projects. We found very good scientists in different parts of India in big institutes. And that was the beginning. And in 3 years, they had done so well, number of papers had come. So the Department of Science and Technology took it over formally as a task force in Ayurvedic biology. That is the story. But today, the situation is, I think 14 years are over. There are some 25 or 30 papers published in very good journals, including Nature. And we have two centers of excellence. One is in JNU, another is our Manipal Academy of Higher Education in Ayurvedic biology. And Kanpur IIT has put up a very ambitious proposal to set up a center for Ayurvedic biology in Kanpur. I don't know the current status of that application, but there is an increasing interest. It is slowly growing. That is where it stands now.
Thank you so much, sir, for actually bringing all this information consolidated over a short period of time. Pavanji, can you ask the next question, please?
No, I don't want to leave this Ayurvedic biology alone. Sir, I would request you again to go into the details of the Ayurvedic project. But first, we'll take the question of CK Katiyarji, that application of on technology to Ayurveda diagnostics. If you can bring in the Ayurvedic biology aspect also, that will be marvelous. But we would also like to know, sir, your personal experiences, the legends from Ayurveda field who were in these initial days of Ayurveda biology. What is the current status? Who heads that? What was your experience on the projects from Ayurveda side?
This is unfortunately, I was not very happy with that, because in spite of great efforts that we made, I personally would go to many Ayurvedic colleges, universities, giving convocation address, etc., extensive correspondence. But in spite of, and every committee of the referees and all that in Ayurvedic biology, we had Ayurvedic physicians. Nothing, monitoring committees, there is always an Ayurvedic physician. So that's how we did. But in spite of all that, towards 10 years, I was chairing that. Then I quit on my own, because I thought it is wrong for a person to continue as a fixture. So there was not a single proposal which originated from an Ayurvedic college or Ayurvedic institution. We never got a project. That was a disappointment. And secondly, that was a serious problem. And hypothesis-based research, it just doesn't happen. All the proposals we were getting, most of them came from colleges of pharmacy, not from medical institutions also. Very few came. So the largest number came from colleges of pharmacy, and they were all on medicinal plants. And we don't consider it a good type of research, because if you say that there are identified 1,000 medicinal plants fully identified in Charaka Samhita, if you take them and characterize them, all the compounds from that is a project, and you require a very big laboratory to do it. This kind of research, we have done it in India for the last 70 years. And what drug have we produced? It's a serious question. We have Gugulip, which was made by Sukadev, etc., from NCL and CDRI. And Reserpine was made, that was Rustam Vakil's contribution. Neither of these have made any mark on medical practice or industry. Leave aside the Indian market. So we have not been successful. So I don't think that's a separate subject. We'll talk about it some other time. So that medicinal plant, in fact, in our website, we have specifically said, we do not consider these. Because already there are big institutes doing this. So the NBRI in Lucknow, the aromatic plants, medicinal plant institute in Lucknow, Jammu Institute, CDRI, they're all working on this. So there is no need for us. Our resources are very small. So we will only look at, this is all pharmacology essentially. The Ayurvedic research means pharmacology. If you look at even today in Ayurvedic journal, articles 80-90% will be pharmacology. But there is a whole lot of physiology happening. When you are doing rasayana, it is the physiology which is changing. Nobody is studying that. So there is a whole lot else in Ayurveda which we are missing. Immune behavior of the system. Lots of changes are happening. Like rheumatoid arthritis, everybody knows Ayurvedic treatment, there is amelioration. Symptoms, the redness goes, the pain becomes less, swelling is less, mobility is better. All these are known. But then obviously what happens in the immune system, nobody studies that. So we always have this fixation with pharmacology. This I never liked it. I don't object to that. But our resources are small, so we should invest it somewhere else. So we concentrated, we said it in the website also. So that was a bit of a disappointment, our over fixation on the pharmacology. With a very, very poor yield, we are not getting anything out of it. But I believe that the future of this, for example, take degenerative diseases. Ayurveda has a great deal to contribute, no question about that. Charaka talks about Methi Rasayanas. I know a lot of work is being done on this, but it is quite possible. Like the Chinese, they discovered artemisinin against infections from Chinese traditional medicine. So here we have the Rasayana plants. I feel reasonably certain that we will find either a prophylactic or therapeutic for degenerative diseases. That is where we should concentrate.
Sir, this aspect, application of technology to Ayurvedic diagnostics, your views?
Diagnostics, today it's heavily dependent. When you say technology, usually it means instrumentation or medical devices. These are the technology, or radioisotopes and things like that. So diagnostic is so dominated by these technologies, instruments, devices, radio diagnostics, optical instruments, like that. There is a very large field today. I think the global, it will be $1 trillion, something like that. But in this, I find very difficult. Ayurveda cannot have any of these. Ayurvedic physicians are gladly using these technologies. And technology is, it doesn't belong to modern medicine. Suppose you are using radioisotopes. They are used by agricultural scientists also. So why cannot modern Ayurvedic physicians use it or actually use it? In fact, I cannot imagine in an Ayurvedic physician, suppose somebody goes to him with cough, expectoration, and there is a blood tinge in the sputum. Can you imagine his treating that patient without chest X-ray or a sputum test? So that is already happening. So in the diagnostic field, I think Ayurveda has clinical observation they had. That is not a technology. In fact, Charaka Sushruta or even modern medicine in the 19th century, for example, they were acute observations, very, very careful. And they could make inference much better than we can because their mental faculties were very much highly developed. We depend on instruments, so we have lost many of those. So therefore, in the area of diagnosis, the kind of accuracy, for example, COVID, for example, all these diagnoses, they require modern technology, instrumentation. That, I don't see how Ayurveda can develop that. You should use it instead of developing it. It is already happening, actually. I know many like Kottakkal, when I go there, in their screening process itself, they are using all these technologies. The actual test is done by a technician or a radiologist or somebody. But Ayurveda uses it. Where is the reason not to use it?
Okay, sir. Thanks a lot, sir, for your insight, valuable insight. Geeta ji.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Bhavji. Sir, I have been fortunate to write the review of your book, Legacy of Vagbheda, for Journal of Ayurveda Integrative Medicine. And have heard your talk several times. And I know that you beautifully connect science and history. In a historical perspective, where is Ayurveda now? Where are we standing now? Are we going up the ladder or climbing down? How do we assess our progress, and what is the radar, and which is the lighthouse that is guiding us? Like you are valuable advice.
I think, according to me, the judgment should be made at two levels. One is how much service is it rendering to Indian patients. That the health ministry should have the data compared to, say, 5 years ago. Today, how many patients are accessing Ayurveda for their treatment? If that number is going up, number of Ayurvedic hospitals are increasing, number of patients accessing that increasing, that means you are doing very well. You are helping. That is one metric. Another metric is exporting Ayurvedic drugs, Ayurvedic products, Ayurvedic teachers being demanded by foreign countries to go and teach there. All those education, etc. That is another way of judging Ayurveda. And third is the research. And research means, if it is basic science like our Ayurvedic biology, you should judge it by publications in top journals. There is no other way to judge it. If you are doing basic research in Ayurveda, like a genomic basis of dosha prakriti, that kind of work that you are doing, that should be judged whether it is published in a top journal. There is no escape from that. There is no use saying I published it here and all that. Nobody will accept it. We want global acceptance of Ayurveda. We don't have to be ashamed to say that. So we aim for the best. But at the same time, we should also look at the products. If you are making a new drug, for example, a new formulation, which everybody is using, the world is using, new drug, that product development, that is another way of judging in research. One is basic research, the other is applied research. So these are the three ways you can assess Ayurveda. I don't think it is being done systematically. Very often we are easily satisfied with publishing a paper in an Indian journal. There's nothing wrong we should do. We should promote Indian journals, but we should not be satisfied with that alone. We have to aim higher. Because if you're a sportsman, it is good to be the top sportsman in India, but that's not enough. We should also aim for Olympics. That's what we should do for Ayurveda. When we are inheriting from Charaka and Sushruta and all that, certainly we should also try to do something like that, global acceptance. I would say that.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for the direction.
I cannot say that I am satisfied with the progress we are making. We should be able to do much more in all these areas. I would personally like, it's like a wish list for me. I would like Ayurveda, for example, where it has a good treatment. Standardize this, standardize Ayurvedic drugs. It is a very big problem, as you very well know. There is no confidence in the use of Ayurvedic medicines. Quality control is very poor. The Ayurvedic pharmacopoeia, for example, there are only 4 or 5 volumes. They don't cover the formulations which are being sold in the market. So a time should come when all the formulations sold in the market, Ayurvedic, they should all find a place in the pharmacopoeia. We should be able to look at it. What is the composition? That has to come. That's the way to serve people that we are not able to do. Similarly, it always worries me, medical Ayurvedic students, when I interact with them. You know, many of them, after they pass their BAMS, they are going and working as assistants in nursing homes. They are not happy, but they are doing it. And one of the reasons they tell me is, sir, they go to a small place, he is the physician there. Somebody comes with hypertension. He can take the blood pressure, but about treatment, he is confused. He is not confident. So therefore, the protocol to treat all common ailments, 80% of the common illnesses, a protocol of treatment according to Ayurveda, not mixing with other things. And that should be developed on the basis of clinical trials. Only Ayurvedic physicians can do it. There is no need for modern medicine people. Ayurvedic protocol, but a statistician has to be involved. And statistics should be taught in the Ayurvedic colleges so that a protocol is available. These young doctors, BAMS, go out to practice somewhere. They've got a protocol there. Common illnesses are all covered. You can treat with confidence. So that kind of clinical research, clinical trials, that should come. The drug standardization should come. And research, of course, this. In fact, we have tried very hard to get a PhD student with an MD in Ayurveda. We are unable to get them under this our Ayurvedic biology scheme. We offered PhD fellowships, and nobody after MD Ayurveda, nobody will come. They are all doing practice like modern medicine. So there are disappointments, but I hope slowly it will change.
Thanks, sir. Thanks for that guidance. Pavanji, next question.
Sir, you headed a very legendary task force in this Ayurvedic biology. From that task force to now, the task force, which is the talk of the nation, the task force on COVID-19. We cannot go beyond that. So I quote one of your quotations, sir, verbatim. Quotation marks. At this time, there is no common ground where physicists, chemists, immunologists, and molecular biologists can interact with Ayurveda physicians. Ayurveda is not only the mother of science, medicine, but also of all life sciences in India. In spite of it, science has been completely diverse from Ayurveda. But these are the interdisciplinary areas where advances will take place. End of the quotation, sir. How do you look at the current interdisciplinary efforts taking place to fight COVID-19? The task force comprising of Bhushan Patwardhan as the chair. He succeeded you as the chair of Ayurveda biology also, I presume. I remember that.
I know Bhushan's work. He is, as you know very well, for the last several years, he has made great efforts to bring these different disciplines together. He's one of the few people doing that. But the result of this will take time. He is making a great effort because all these disciplines in our Ayurvedic biology, we get projects come to us, we assess it and we give grants. That's what we are doing. It may not have any great effect at the community level. These are ideas essentially and leading to discoveries. That's what happens in the basic science kind of research. That's what we are doing. Whereas Bhushan's work is down to earth, where all these different disciplines, they work together, they contribute. And that also, I don't know how successful it is. I know he's also finding a scientific basis for that. If you are going to mix certain formulations of Ayurveda, you are giving, what is the scientific basis for the results that you are getting, all that kind of thing he's doing. But the impact of that is very, very new. He started this after the COVID. So we don't really know how this is going to impact over the next 10 years. Whether it will make, in actual patient care, will it make a visible impact? It is too early to tell. But that is the right approach. Yes.
Sir, there from the feedback, one of the viewers, Ranjit Puranik ji, has asked that from a counterpoint sort of way, that what prevents modern physicians, that is physicians trained in allopathy, to do their bit for the cause of Indian science, that is Ayurveda, as an interdisciplinary approach? What do you say as a representative of an allopathic field? How do you use Ayurveda in your practice?
Actually, the modern medicine, unfortunately, there is no willingness or cooperative attitude at all to Ayurveda. Even the world takes interest because some years ago when the medical council was working, a colleague of mine who was in the medical council, he brought a resolution in their executive committee to have an introductory course in Ayurveda, in medical MBBS course, introductory course, 2 weeks or 3 weeks, something. And they refused. But what is happening is today in Cambridge University in the United Kingdom, several universities in the United States, they all have this, an introductory course in traditional medicine. Here we are not willing to do that. It is actually self-destructive. We are depriving ourselves of a great resource we have. I have no idea. I may be considered very odd, taking interest in Ayurveda. But eventually, what will happen is, if great discoveries come, suppose tomorrow there is a great discovery made, you can prevent Alzheimer's disease from Ayurveda. Then you will find this attitude will change. Because this is an attitude they have cultivated over centuries. It's not easy to eliminate that. So therefore, only a few people, after all, in Ayurvedic biology, we were able to get projects. Some 25, 30 papers have come. These are all collaborative efforts of immunologists, biologists, Ayurvedic physicians. All these papers have come. Number of institutions are involved. Big Indian Institute of Science, CCMB in Hyderabad, Banaras University, Pune University. These are all doing these projects. All India Institute of Medical Sciences. So I feel that it will be very slow. You cannot, unfortunately, expect quick results in this. The whole profession, their intellectual habits are so different. But this kind of dramatic results, then that pride will come. Yes, we have this. Then you will find more and more young people taking interest. Ayurvedic MD will want to do PhD in this subject. So that's a slow process. After all, it took us 7.5 years to make a small heart valve. So here we are talking about thousands of people, a profession itself. So we have to be more patient.
Got it, sir. Hope that your words come true, and when in the near future we emulate China in getting the Nobel Prize from Ayurvedic roots. Hope to get that. Geeta ji, next question.
Sir, your publications on Ayurveda, the legacy series Charaka, Sushruta, and Vagbhada, till the latest, the Ayurvedic Inheritance, Everyday's Companion, which is published in 2017. You had actually delved into these classics quite a lot, and like considerable work has been done. I would like to know what your personal favorite is. Which one is your personal favorite among the Ayurvedic classics, and a little bit of explanation on why.
I can tell you without any hesitation, my favorite is Charaka. He stands head and shoulders above all others. I know Sushruta is Indian surgery, all of it. I have great admiration. Vagbhada made all this easily accessible, great poetry for ordinary people. As he says, Yugani Rupa, he's modified it for the present age. I have admiration for all of them. But Charaka is entirely different. Because first of all, Charaka himself says that I am redacting a book written by Agnivesha. Agnivesha Tantre Punasapskrute. He writes at the end of every chapter. But today nobody knows Agnivesha Tantra, what it is. But Charaka Samhita is known. Everywhere, if a classic is written, and then later editions come edited by various people, that original name remains, Gray's Anatomy. After 150 years, it is still Gray's Anatomy. It is edited by somebody else. Now here is entirely different. Agnivesha, nobody knows. They have never heard about him. Actually, that book existed. We know it existed. Because Ayurveda Deepika, Chakrapani refers to it. He quotes from it. So that book existed. But today, nobody knows about it. So that itself shows something extraordinary about him. And secondly, before Charaka, Atharva Vedic medicine, for example, he says you should be loyal to Atharva Veda if you want to learn Ayurveda. Charaka himself says that. But Atharva Vedic medicine was essentially faith-based. Disease is due to the anger of gods, Agni, Varuna, etc. So if you want to get rid of that illness, you have got to make offerings to him. You have to have hymns for him. All the Atharva Vedic hymns are hymns to these gods. So it was a faith-based system, Deva Vyapashraya, Charaka's phrase. And he says the difference today is it is Yukti Vyapashraya. It is reason-based. Now that is a great thing he did. Very, very important. And thirdly, Charaka Samhita is not just medicine alone. That's why it is a textbook of medicine will be forgotten. Somebody else will write a better one or a later one. But Charaka has a whole lot more than medicine. Take, for example, his concept of basic concepts. Philosophy, He says, knowledge, human being, knowledge. How do you get knowledge? Pratyaksha, Anuman. And there he puts yukti, reason also there. That is one area of philosophy, epistemology and all that. Then he takes Sankhya, and these are the Indian systems of philosophy. And Sankhya, the evolution in Sankhya, Parinama. And there, Professor Dasgupta, one of the great historian of Indian philosophy, he says Charaka is the founder of the original Sankhya, Mula Sankhya. Because Sankhya, evolution of the universe or existence itself. Initially, there is an avyakta, an indistinct, indefinable stage. Then comes Mahat, consciousness comes. Then Ahankara, individuation comes. Then the Mahabhutas, five Indriyas come. And then what the Indriyas see, detect, that is the universe. What is accessible to our senses. These are 24 things Charaka has described. Chaturvimshati. He is very clear. There is no place in this for a creator, for a God. So at the end of this indefinite time, all this will dissolve back to Avyakta again. So it is a cyclical. This Chaturvimshati is the original Mula Sankhya. Ishvara Krishna's Sankhya Karika came 100 years later. So he was a great philosopher. And he, for example, logic, another system, the Nyaya system. There are his logical parameters of debate. There is a whole chapter in Charaka Samhita, as you know, on debate. The parameters of conducting a debate. He describes that. So like that, different, all branches of philosophy. He was not just explaining something somebody else had said. He was a propounder of that itself. That is there. And then take a problem like destiny. It is not really part of Indian destiny. Everybody, a patient's coming to the hospital, they are really not interested in the diagnosis of that. Their question is always, what will happen to me? Will I get better? Or will I die? That is the anxiety every patient has in the family. So Charaka was aware of this. Is there a lifespan? Is it predetermined? If it is predetermined, then why have he himself says that? If it is all predetermined, then why go to an Ayurvedic physician? Why do you want to offer prayers? So he took a halfway. If bad things you have done, acts of great evil, then that karma will destroy you, that punish you. There is nothing anybody can do. But the great many things that we do, they are not conscious crimes that we are committing. These are mistakes we are making. Eating the wrong kind of food or the wrong type of environment, filthy environment in which you live, all kinds of things. These are acts which we do unwittingly, and that results in illness. Most of it. It's not somebody a serial murderer. That kind of thing you cannot prevent. Karma, he will have to pay the price. But the great majority of them are not like that. These are things, if you do positive actions, if these are negative actions for the mistakes that you make, there is a negative influence. For the good things you do, there is a positive influence. So you can neutralize, you can overcome that. And this is specifically he describes. So Charaka's code of conduct, which he elaborate, very, very detailed description, how you should live. These are acts of righteousness, good things to be done for the body, for the mind, for your spirit. If you do that, you can neutralize the effect, karma, of many of these negative things which happen. So he gives a hopeful, it is not the fate, everything is decided, so we can't do anything. Not that fatalistic view. Here is something, a command to do righteous living. Now there again, everywhere you will see this, all environmental destruction, what we are seeing today, the devastation of the environment. The whole place is destroyed by COVID. But Charaka knew this, not about COVID, but he talks about the destruction of the human habitat, Janapado Dhumsana. He describes that. So there is nothing, in fact, Charaka Samhita, as you know, concludes it, quotes from Mahabharata approvingly, Yadi hasti tad anyatra, yanne hasti natat kvachit. What you see here, you may find elsewhere. But what you don't find here, you will find nowhere. He quotes that. So Charaka had a universal mind. He was one of the greatest sons of India. So I admire him without any question.
Thank you so much, sir, for it's really like heartening to hear it from you. So there was just one more question to you, or a request You had been fortunate enough to be very close and like knowing Dr. Raghavan Tirmalpad very well. How was your interaction with him? Like, what do you think about him, and what few words about him?
A great honor and privilege for me. I had actually seen a small book, very small book, only 80 pages, when I was gone to Kottakkal to give the lecture. That's the first time. I had never heard of him. So there was a gap of 2 or 3 hours for me before the lecture. So an Ayurvedic student gave me this book to read, Ayurveda Parishaya. That was the that was Raghavan Tirmalpad, a small book. I thoroughly enjoyed reading it. Very simple language, very logical, no exaggerated claims. That's where I first heard. Then the Nagarjuna Foundation in Kochi, they set up an advisory committee. I was the chairman, and there he was a member. I met him again. But we didn't have any formal interaction, but I had read 2 or 3 other books he had written. So I knew that he was a very great scholar. So when I decided in 1999, my term was ending in Manipal, I decided to study Ayurveda. I thought I'll contact him. So I wrote to him. I went and met him in Chalakudi. So he was very surprised. He said, doctor, your background is all very different. I have not learned science. I can understand English, but I'm not fluent in that. And my old physician, Vrutham Vaidyan, he was saying, what can you learn from me and all that? So we started very well. But our method was, as you know, Charaka Samhita, 120 chapters, it's a big book. But that's where I wanted to start. And so we decided that every 2.5 to 3 months, I'll go to Kottakkal. So I'll be studying Charaka Samhita, say chapters 1 to 5 or 1 to 3, depending on the length of the chapter. And I would write to him, I'm coming on this date, and these are the chapters. So he would also have looked at it. So when I would go there, I would tell him that this is chapter 1, these are the things I have understood from this. I was helped by P.V. Sharma's translation also, not by alone. I would first read it, understand it, then supplement it with reading P.V. Sharma. This was my method. And I'll make my notes. So when I would tell him this, he would listen, and every sloga he would stop me and he would say, that is all right. He will approve. But many times he would say that is not very clear. This is what it means. So I would make my notes. This was our method. And it worked reasonably well. But very often he would digress and tell me about his personal experience. That was very valuable. Not really directly connected to this. So that was a great learning experience for me. In fact, not directly connected to your question, one experience I had with him. One evening, the sun was setting, and he suddenly asked me, what do you think about the opening verse of Vandana Shlokam in Ashtanga Hridaya, which was not connected to Charaka? Raga Adirogan Saradana Saktan, that famous slogan. So he asked me, what do you think about that? I was a bit surprised. Fortunately, I knew that slogan. So I told him that this is the meaning, that diseases are all over, everywhere, all the time. And they create all kinds of problems. Saradhana, Saktana, Sheshaka, the whole body is involved. Aulsukya, anxiety, moha, delusion, arati, hatred. All these are produced by that. These. And the great physician who can cure these problems, hatred, how do you cure somebody of that? That great physician, Apurva Vaidyaya Namostu Tasmai, that rare physician, Apurva, salutations. He listened, he said, yes, that is how it is understood. But Apurva has another meaning. So I was curious. I did not know any other meaning of Apurva. He said Purva means the precedent. So Vaidya has a teacher, his precedent. That teacher had a teacher. So you can regress like this. But when you keep on regressing, you will reach a state there is no further. That stops there. That is Apurva Vaidya. He has no precedent. That ends there. That is the position. You may say it is God. You may say it is Buddha. It is a divine. So Ayurveda, therefore, is not a man-made knowledge. Somebody did some experiment, found out something and wrote. It is not like that. It is Apaurushaya. So therefore, when you handle a knowledge of divine origin, you have to be highly respectful. Your conduct has to be right. Your speech has to be right. You have to be right. Otherwise, you have no right to practice this. Now, this is something I have never heard from anybody. And when he paused for a second, I was profoundly moved because I never thought about that. The whole approach to Ayurveda summed up in that. Then he told me, he added in Malayalam, Doctor, എല്ലാ ദിവസവും ഇത് വിടുവിടുക ഒരു പ്രയാസങ്ങളും ഉണ്ടാവില്ല. He told me in Malayalam. I was profoundly touched, almost like Charaga sitting there and telling me in the 21st century.
So thanks for giving that
Tell
experience.
that translation of Malayalam. Gita ji got it. What you said in Malayalam. But for benefit of others, can you translate that? Yes. But in Malayalam.
That we repeated every day. And
Yes.
that was his advice.
Okay.
Advice to
Okay.
to be
So,
every day.
words. Ayurved Upadesheshu Videya Paramadara.
Yeah.
So, wonderful.
Yeah. Pavanji, please carry on with the conclusions.
The time has gone. It's
Beyond
waiting.
that. Beyond 1 hour.
Beyond. It waits for nobody. It was great listening to you, sir. We would still have loved to hear your insight on just one more question, on your advice to the researchers, young researchers of Ayurveda, if you wish, sir. Or otherwise, we will again take your time and we'll go forth on this. So we have crossed the time limit. I thank you. I thank the Forum World Ayurveda Foundation, the mentors of World Ayurveda Foundation, JIM with Girish Tilluji, especially, and Preeti Chabraji with Nasya and her team, and Chandrasekhar ji for the background infrastructure and help. I thank everybody, Geeta ji especially, and Valiathan sir for your wonderful insight and great time, and the learned audience who eagerly, I see a few vice chancellors giving their time to listen to you, sir. Professor MS Baghel, Professor Abhimanyu Kumar, CK Katiyar ji. We all respect your time, sir. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.